Both Switzerland and Singapore are two countries that are very high in demand when it comes for expats to decide to move abroad. In this video, I'm going to talk about which place is better, Singapore or Switzerland, when it comes to moving and living abroad. For those of you who are new here, my name is Marian and I moved from Switzerland to Singapore 2 years ago, and I have found my absolute happy place here in Singapore for various reasons. But in this video, I just want to dive a bit deeper in what's the pros and cons of moving to each place as an expat. There will be a winner announced at the end of the video, so stay until the end. Number one, cost of living. And I think this is a very, very obvious one. Singapore is way more affordable to live in than Switzerland. Everyone keeps saying Singapore is the most expensive city in the world, but comparing cost of living in Switzerland and Singapore can actually be really cheap if you know some tips and tricks. Just to give you a few examples. When it comes to grocery shopping, you have FairPrice, you have Sheng Siong, you have a lot of wet markets where you can actually shop affordable. In Switzerland, I was so shocked, honestly, when I was there in the winter and I just got a few items and it cost me like $30. So groceries are definitely more expensive in Switzerland. When it comes to services like manicure, pedicure, all the beauty stuff, you cannot even compare. You can get a manicure in Singapore for $40. In Switzerland, I think it's a minimum of $100. I know this is a luxury thing and it's probably not considered as cost of living, but if you consider things like cost of living as an expat, which country is better, you also want to treat yourself from time to time. So you can get cheap massages in Singapore, which I could never afford in Switzerland. When we talk about rental, I would say they're both similar. Rent is high in Singapore compared to the rest of the cost of living, but I think it's more or less the same. When it comes to cars, okay, here Switzerland wins because cars in Singapore are extremely expensive, probably the most expensive place to buy a car in the whole world. You have to buy a certificate that just allows you to buy a car and drive a car, and it's valid for 10 years only, and after that it expires, and it costs up to $100,000. So cars is very expensive in Singapore. But when we look at rent, it's the same. Cars, yes, more expensive in Singapore, but all the other factors like even health insurance is way cheaper in Singapore. I paid 800 Singapore dollars for my Swiss health insurance a month. And in Singapore, I think it's half, like 400 around. And then also public transport is a lot more affordable in Singapore. So if you consider all these factors, I think definitely cost of living are way cheaper in Singapore. So Singapore 1, Switzerland 0. Number 2, the weather. And I'm not sure if there's going to be a winner for this topic because I personally love the weather in Singapore. I think this is the best part about living here. It's 30 degrees, 365 days of the year. 90% humidity. I just love it. I don't ever need any body lotion. And in Switzerland, you have the 4 seasons. Summer is between June and August, but it's very inconsistent. Sometimes it rains and the temperature drops down to 15 to 20 degrees. In winter, it gets very, very cold. In the mountains, yes, you have snow. You have beautiful fall season and spring season. But I know that a lot of expats who move to Singapore, they miss the 4 seasons and the heat is just too much for them. Also, a lot of tourists coming here, they think the heat is too much. When you look at the expat perspective, I do understand that some people prefer 4 seasons. I personally do not. I love the weather. So I don't think I'm gonna give a point to either of the countries. So I think it's still Singapore 1, Switzerland 0. Number 3, language. And then also here, the winner is very clear. In Singapore, everyone speaks English. And if you can speak English, you're perfectly fine. I have been here for 2 years and I've not encountered a language barrier once. In Switzerland, on the other hand, you have 4 languages. You have German, French, Italian, and Romansh. Romansh is a very, very small percentage, so I don't even know anyone who speaks that, but it's still an official language. And wherever you move to in Switzerland, for example, Zurich, you really need to speak German. Otherwise, you have a hard time. So learning German or French or Italian, if you move there as an expat, can be super tricky and can be a long process until you finally feel comfortable in speaking the language. This also brings me to the sponsor of today's video, Lingoda, which is an online language school. Learning a new language has been something that I've been wanting to do for so long, but let's be honest, staying consistent is super tough. It's so easy to lose motivation, but that's why I love the concept of the Lingoda sprint. It's a 60 days challenge which basically holds you accountable and then you can see progress very fast. This is how it works. First, you choose your challenge. It's either 30 classes in 60 days or 60 classes in 60 days. Then they have very small group classes. Only up to 5 students are in one class. And that has the benefit that you get to speak a lot. You are taught by native level teachers, so you really learn these native communication skills. And the best part, if you attend all of the classes, you get 50% cashbacks or free classes. I'm currently learning Spanish with Lingoda, and I really love how interactive the classes are. You don't just have to memorize words, but you're actively practicing speaking, which helps so much. And the classes are available 24/7, so you can just attend them and do them whenever it fits your schedule. I saw that over 50,000 people have attended the Lingoda Spring Challenge. If you've been thinking of learning a new language, this is the perfect opportunity. You can choose between English, Business English, Spanish, Italian, French, and German. You can use the link in my description to save 20% on your sign-up fee, and on top 20 euros if you use my code. Back to the showdown, Switzerland versus Singapore. Number 4, social life and making friends. From my own perspective, I can say that making friends in Singapore was not very hard. I was welcomed with open arms. On the other hand, my friend Olivia, who has moved to Switzerland from Singapore around 7 years ago, recently told me that she is still struggling to really find good friends. She says that Swiss are not the most friendly and outgoing people, and she has a hard time to connect and build deeper relationships. And from my own perspective, I really think sometimes the Swiss people are not the nicest. I wouldn't describe the Swiss communities as outgoing, friendly. And I remember being in university, if there was an exchange student, people wouldn't just ask you if you wanted to come along, or they would see someone sitting alone and would go up to and say, hey, like, do you want to join us? I think the Swiss can be quite brutal. Especially since Singapore has a very big expat community already, it's very easy to connect with other like-minded people. In Singapore, there are so many meetup groups or events happening where I think if you are a bit outgoing and you put yourself out there, it's not hard to make friends. So this one definitely goes to Singapore. So we have Singapore 3, Switzerland 0. Number 5, work opportunities and career perspectives. Singapore is very good for finance, tech, and business, and it's very easy to set up a company. This is also what I did with my Swizzy Private Limited. By the way, I'll link a video up here where I talk more about how I got my work permit. So check that out if you're interested in how to get an employment pass. Singapore has also lower personal income tax, which makes it very attractive for expats to come here and work. The only downside in Singapore is that it's sometimes very hard to even get a work visa. If your company doesn't sponsor you a work visa, it is very difficult. And I know a lot of examples where the woman who comes with her husband who has a job here, she's not able to work, she doesn't get a work permit, so that can be a tricky part. Switzerland, on the other hand, is known for very high salaries, but also for limited job opportunities. Also in Switzerland, it's hard to get a work permit unless you have very highly specialized skills. In terms of work-life balance, definitely Switzerland is a bit more relaxed. People spend more time in nature. People usually don't work on the weekends, where I think in Singapore, work-life balance is sometimes non-existent. I get emails from clients even on the weekend, so people are very hardworking. So I think for this one, there's no winner, because even though Switzerland has very high salaries, the cost of living are very high. And in Singapore, it is super hard to get a work visa, and sometimes you cannot even find jobs as a foreigner. It has become more and more difficult for expats to relocate to Singapore. It's not the same as 10 years ago, where so many expats move to Singapore because of their job and their career. Number 6 is nature. And I think the winner here is very clear. Switzerland is known for its breathtaking views and mountains and nature. And even though I love Singapore's greenery and I love Sentosa Island and McRitchie Reservoir, which is a beautiful nature reserve, Switzerland with its endless hiking trails and nature, which are very close to most of the places. So you can go up to the mountains just within 1 hour. I think it's hard to compete with. And something about Switzerland I really love, and it's hard to describe, the air is so crisp and clear, and the sky is blue, and you see the stars at night, something you cannot really find in Singapore. But you have palm trees in Singapore, which I love. So this makes the end result of Singapore 3 and Switzerland 1. So we have a clear winner in my opinion. Let me know in the comments, do you agree or disagree? Where do you think is a better place to live as an expat? Watch this video up next, where I share my personal story and my challenges I faced when moving to Singapore and how it changed my life forever. Also, don't forget to check out the link in my description where you can learn a new language with Lingoda. And if you want to know more about Singapore, and how it is to live there, best places to eat, what to do, check out my Instagram, Swizzyinsg. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye!